Today we are going to discuss about type of reading. Okay. Type of reading. In English, there are different type of reading. For example, we have there are four type of reading in English. Okay. There are four type of reading in English. We have extensive reading, we have intensive reading, and we have skimming and scanning. Okay. What do we mean by extensive reading? It is a type of reading that when we read for our own pleasure. Okay. For example, if somebody wants to read a fiction, a Bible, Quran, storybooks, whatever, this type of reading is called extensive reading, which means no one pushes you to read, just only you yourself want to read it. That is called extensive reading. There is no exam. You just put it on your table, or you lay down on your bed, or you go to a beach, wherever, and you read as much as you can. 1 page, 2 page, 3 pages, whatever. So this type of reading is called extensive reading, and we call it reading for pleasure, for our own pleasure. No one told us to read. No one said read from page 1 up to page 6 or whatever. You just read for your own. That is called extensive reading. When we came to the intensive reading, today what I'm just clarifying is that a type of reading in English. Okay. As a whole, we have 4 type of reading. I already mentioned the first one, that is an extensive reading, and the second one is intensive reading. Extensive reading means reading for our own pleasure, when we read books, storybooks, fictions, or magazines, articles, whatever. Okay, no one forced us to read that. That is called extensive reading. There is no exam, there is no pressure on that. Okay. If you want to read Bible, go and read Bible. That's called extensive reading. If you want to read Quran, go and read Quran. That's called extensive reading. No one forced you. You don't have any exam on that. You just read for your own pleasure. You want to read sport magazine, go and read. If you want to read fiction, go and read. If you want to read biographies, autobiographies, historical books, political books, that is for your own pleasure. That is extensive reading. And the second type is called intensive reading. Intensive reading is a type of reading that when we read for exam, that is called an academic reading. For your class exam, for final exam, for mid exam, for entrance exam, university entrance exam, or a job written exam, whatever. So if you have some exam and if you read, that is called intensive reading. As the name indicates, it has some intensity on that, which means you give some focus, you have your own focus on that. You give some time because you have an objective at the end. Your objective in intensive reading is to pass exam, whatever the type of exam you want to pass. Okay, when we see the third one, that is called scanning. Scanning means when, let's say, when a teacher said, give you a paragraph and said from the paragraph that he gave or she gave, if she said, take out numbers, years, okay, or names, I want you to tell me names or nouns from the given paragraph. You just go to the paragraph and then you look over, you glance with your own eyes, and then you pick out the nouns, whatever the teacher said. That is called scanning. You scan for a specific information. You don't just go to details, you just scan. That is reading for specific information, and we call it scanning. For example, if a pregnant woman go to a clinic and the doctor ordered scanning, what is the specific information here? Only to see how the baby is doing. So she's not supposed to scan her leg, her hands, only she is scanning her womb, because the specific information that the doctor wants is how the baby is doing in the mother's womb. That is called reading for specific information. So when we read for specific information, we just go to the text and we just pick what we want to read. If you want to go to, let's say you have a flight tomorrow, you are flying to Canada, Toronto, so you go to airport, you are not supposed to read what is in there about domestic flights, like a flight to Bahar Dar, a flight to Dreidawa. No, what you are going to do is you are checking the international flight section, and then what time the plane arrive, and what is the time to fly. That is reading for a specific information. Okay, that is called scanning. If you wanted to apply for accounting as a job, what do? You just go and find an advertisement that talks about accounting, not engineering, not teaching, not management, not marketing, because your specific information is to search about a job vacancy about accounting. So this kind of reading is called scanning. When we bring this into the classroom, you have a text. Let's say the teacher said, open your textbook at page 12 and look at the text. So from that text, the teacher orders you to find some specific information. Maybe he can say from paragraph 2, find adjectives. You go to the paragraph and then you glance your eyes, you pick adjectives. He would say, go to paragraph 6 and find some verbs. You go to paragraph 6, you glance your eyes, you don't read, you just move here and there within your eyes, and then you pick verbs. This kind of reading is called scanning. So scanning is reading for a specific information. When we read for specific information. The other type of reading is called skimming. Skimming is a type of reading that when somebody reads to understand the gist of the written text. What do you mean by gist? Gist is a main idea, okay? A main idea of the text, the paragraph, whatever. if you want to understand what is the main idea in a given paragraph, you don't have to scan, because your whole purpose is not about picking out some specific information. Your whole objective is all about understanding what is the paragraph is all about, to get the theme of the given paragraph. What is the moral of the story? That is when it becomes the whole paragraph, the whole text, or the whole passage. What is the moral of the story? What is the main idea of the paragraph? In this context, the reading type is called skimming. Skimming includes reading between the line. What do you mean by reading between the line? Reading between the line means when we read critically, we give focus, we understand, we might read 2 or 3 times to understand the main idea. So in this time, the reading type is called skimming. In exam, you get a passage. So if you are a student, to pass your exam, your final objective is to pass your exam. So you don't have to read the whole passage, because that passage is there for you not to understand what the whole passage is all about. That passage is there for you to use your scanning skill of reading to answer the question. So this is what you are going to do. Take the question to the passage and then find it. Yes, there are questions that can't be answered by scanning. There are some questions that need some critical reading, skimming, but most of the passage questions in English exam, whether you are a university student, whether you are a high school, elementary, whatever, the skill that you need is scanning, not skimming. Yes, there might be 2 or 3 questions that that needs some skimming skill, but most of the questions, the true false, the matching questions, the reference question means like this THIS in paragraph 6 refers to blank. This type of question is not answered by skimming. This type of question is answered by a skill called scanning. You take the question, you go to the paragraph, you see where this stands there, and then you see what is before this and after this, and then you just take some clear idea about that, and then you answer. So in English exam, you don't have to supposed to read the whole 6-page, 4-page paragraphs, or 6-page or 5-page texts. What you are supposed to do is just scan. Take the question where to the passage and answer, especially true, false, and multiple choice questions. There might be 2 or 3 questions that needs your critical reading, like I said before, but whatever the case, if you want to use your time appropriately in exam, because time is mandatory in examination room, whether you take an online exam or a paper pencil test, a paper pencil exam, use your time wisely. Don't waste your time by reading the whole passage. 3-page, 4-page, 5-page, 2-page, at least 2-page passage. It's impossible. It's impossible to read and understand. Okay, but there are questions that there might say is like, what is the main idea of paragraph 3? Or what do you think the appropriate title for paragraph 5? In this case, go, read, understand, come back and answer. This is called skimming. So you are supposed to use these two skills simultaneously while you are answering a question, a comprehension question, or a question that is derived from the passage. Most of the time, you use your scanning skill of reading, but for selective questions, 2 or 3 questions, you are going to use the skimming. So applying scanning skill wisely will help you to answer the questions that are should answered by skimming. It saves time for you. But if you start by reading the whole text, you lose your time. As I said, time is precious in exam. So at the last, maybe the invigilator took the paper out of your hand and finished. And you said, oh my God, teacher, I don't finish. Or the computer, if it is online, the computer will turn off and you feel sorry. So to save yourself from this kind of scenario, apply skimming and scanning simultaneously, but most of the time you are supposed and must use scanning. Take the question to the passage, find it and answer it. Take the question to the passage, find answer. Take the question to the passage, find answer. If you face 2 or 3 questions asked about what is the main idea, you use skimming. Skimming, you read between the line, you interpret, you understand, and you find the implication. There are also inference questions. So you read, you understand, and you infer. But most of the time, passage questions are answered by using scanning, not skimming. You have to be careful on this. If you are a student, a university, a high school, elementary, whatever, or if you sat on an exam for your job, don't read the whole passage. That's not appropriate. So what I'm going to say or to address today is about reading. We have 4 types of reading at the end. This is my conclusion. We have 4 types of reading. We have extensive reading, when we read for our own pleasure. That is when we read fictions, when we read storybooks, when we read magazines, when we read articles, journals, Bible, Quran, whatever. That gives us pleasure. No one forced us to read. There is no exam. That's called extensive reading. If we read to pass exam, test, classroom exam, mid-exam, final exam, university entrance exam, whatever the exam you face, if you read to pass this kind of exam and test, that is called intensive reading. It intensifies. You have pressure on that. You might read 5 pages per day. That is shows us the intensity. You might read 6 hours per day. It depends on the exam type you took, or you will take, or you take, whatever. But there is a pressure. As the name said, intensify. Intensive reading. There is a pressure to read because there is an exam you must pass. That is called intensive reading. The third type of reading that I mentioned before is called scanning. Scanning is when we read for a specific information. For a specific information. Our main objective in this type of reading is we just take it out some information. When we bring this into the classroom, the teacher can order you to tell him names from paragraph 5. You go to paragraph 5, you glance your eyes, you move here and there, and then you tell him. He might tell you to take some years, age, names, verbs, adjectives, nouns, whatever. You just go there and you pick. This is scanning. The last one is skimming. Skimming is, it needs critical reading. It needs our attention because we read for gist, G-I-S-T. Gist means to understand the main idea of the written text. whether it is a paragraph, whether it is a long text. So the main objective in skimming is understanding the main idea or the gist or the theme or the moral of the story. So in this case, we give time, we just have our attention on the paragraph or in the passage. We read, we understand, we interpret, we infer. Okay? If you are a student, my final advice is to pass exam, you are not supposed to use skimming. What I advise my students in the classroom also is that use the skill of scanning. What does it mean? Don't start by reading the passage. Start from the questions. Bring the questions to the passage, find them in the passage and answer. You bring the question, you search it in the passage, you answer it. But there are questions, my 2 or 3 questions that needs your skimming skill. In this case, you go to that part, the question raised the paragraph, which paragraph? You go and read and then answer. For example, which title suits best for the passage? In this case, you read. It needs your critical reading. You read between the line. Reading between the line means understanding the passage. This kind of questions, you can face 2 or 3 questions, not more than 2 or not more than 3. Because time is precious in exam room, whether you are taking pencil paper test or online test. So use your time wisely. Try to apply scanning. Yes, it is good and advisable to practice skimming skill for your future life, because skimming skill needs you to settle in somewhere, to give time for that reading. Because skimming, the main purpose of skimming is understanding, comprehending the text. Yes, advice, and it is highly advisable you to practice your skimming skill. But in exam room, in your class test, in your exam test, entrance exam, whatever, just use scanning. Bring the question to the passage and then try to find the answer in the passage and go to the question. Don't start by reading the passage, because 4 or 5 page passage, if you read that, you miss the other questions. You don't give focus for the grammar part, the vocabulary part. It takes a lot of time for you to read the whole passage. This is what I want to address today. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow with another topic. Thank you.